Audio diary, July 4th, 2016, 240th birthday of our country. It's been a challenging spring and summer. In my job, I've been cut back to one class instead of two. I have the same pay, but it definitely points out that I've had 6 years as a temporary part-time lecturer at NC State, and it's been a delightful job, and I am as dependent on my job as anyone is, and I certainly hope to do it for as long as I can. But the department is subject to budget cuts, and while my job is secure through this year, there's no assurance. They simply cannot give me an assurance that I am permanently employed. So that is a matter of some alarm, because I have not worked long enough to have Social Security or any pension benefits after I stop working. So I would have to go back on SSI, which is $733 a month. Not a lot of money. So I would need to find a place to live that is subsidized, so that it takes a third of your income, and that's your rent. But these places are few and far between and have long waiting lists, so I've scurried around this summer getting on these waiting lists so that I can transition into that housing while I'm still working. And then in the event that I lose my job, I would be able to not be homeless. I would continue on. So that has been a matter of a focus of my activities, and it's going well, and I have every reason to believe that I'll be able to make this transition in time, and I should be able to keep working for the foreseeable future. But the foreseeable future, I turn 62 in January, may be more determined by health than by the state legislature, which the state legislature, they really don't care much about physics. They're much more interested in basketball and football. I don't understand it, but that's the reality. So that's where the funding priorities are, and it's. But 6 years ago, I got bronchitis, and I've never really gotten over it. The damage appears to have been permanent, and I get flare-ups every year or two, and I figured, well, that's just the virus coming back. I'll just deal with it, and that's fine. But this spring and early summer, I was realizing I was really struggling to breathe and not doing that well, and I was not sick. I did not have any particular inflammation going on. I was just having a hard time breathing. So I went to the doctor and got sent over to a pulmonologist, got my breath tested, and she tells me I have COPD, which is an uncomfortable thing to hear. So that's something I need now to deal with, and so I am now shuffling around with finding medications, and I'll see a cardiologist on Tuesday. That's just the way it is. I was exposed to secondhand smoke for 5 years, from 1991 to 96, and courtesy of the state. And maybe I can sue the state about that. go to see a lawyer. But, so I should be able to maintain and slow the progression of the disease and deal with it for a few years. But it's likely to limit my lifespan, and that's just forcing me to do my homework and concentrate on my spiritual development, which is actually the most enjoyable thing I can think of doing anyway. I haven't been able to write much music this year. I finished a big cello concerto in late January, and then there was an unfinished piece that had 2 movements done for piano and woodwind quintet. So I wrote an opening movement for it and called it Farewell Overture, and bundled that up, and that's now all done. But the next project was a violin concerto for Hare Krishnas, and I just haven't been in the flow. I'm tired, and writing music, especially orchestral music, requires focus and energy and attention to detail and a just astronomical amount of paperwork. And it's just a little too much for me now, and everything is temporary in this our relative world. And part of my spiritual practice is to not be attached and let things go. And that's what I have been having to do, as so many people have done in the past. I mean, everybody eventually gives everything up, so that's part of the practice for everybody, and I am hardly an exception, especially as making a contribution in classical music requires one to be at the top of one's game, because only about maybe 250 people in the history of Western classical music have ever written a piece that, even one piece, has gotten into the standard repertoire or is at all expected to be found on a program anywhere. And that's pretty daunting, because there have been hundreds of thousands of people writing music over the centuries. And there are many tens of thousands of doing it right now. And the internet allows one to see long lists of them. And so it's an exercise in sandcastles. New music is performed once and then forgotten. And mine is no exception. Maybe in some posthumous alternate universe somewhere that things will be different, but that's the way it is, and it's exhausting, and I'm tired. So this may be it. But I do have a long list of pieces that I've done, a big fat filing cabinet that's hard to move. It'll have to be moved at some point. So it's my big love letter to the world, and there it is. So I could go on with more health notes, but I don't want this to be an organ recital. And I'm going to be going to chant with my Hare Krishna friends downtown Raleigh. I got my devotee T-shirt on, and I don't buy into cults or dogma or anything like that, but they're wonderful people, and have found it highly valuable to chat, especially with other people. That's a very wonderful thing. Yesterday, which was Sunday, I went to Macedonia New Life Church, which is an African American congregation down in South Raleigh. I have never been to a charismatic black church before, and I was the only white guy, and it was a happening scene. I was very impressed. I didn't need my hearing aids. It was very active, and 'cause I'm used to very polite and restrained Unitarian services, or Episcopalian, or whatever. It's restrained, Northern European style. It's this was not it. This was an entirely different kettle of fish, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. It was very moving, and I may go again. Of course, it was 3 hours. I didn't quite get to the end because my endurance is limited, but it was something else. And the reason I went was because they're affiliated with housing for elderly and disabled, and so I was interested in the apartments that they work with, which are very nice. And so who knows? I may end up being a regular someday. So who knows? Anyway, that's the latest news, and I intend to be as hale and hearty as humanly possible. I've been working out diligently down at the Rex Wellness Center, but I have to focus on my physical vitality and spiritual development. That's pretty much what I'm doing, and everything else is pretty much gravy at this point. So